Governor DeSantis declaring state of emergency in Florida ahead of Tropical Depression 14 and now Tropical Storm Laura. Good early afternoon, my friends. August 21st, 2020, 12:16 p.m. Check out this article by theledger.com. Unprecedented 2 hurricanes expected in Gulf. Florida still in path of Tropical Storm Laura. Things are getting pretty serious in the Caribbean and the Leeward and Lesser Antilles Islands, as we could see. That is where our tropical storm now Laura is. So just as of a few hours ago, it was named a tropical storm as we expected. Still predicting to be a hurricane. This is what we need to really look at. This is why the state of Florida is going under state of emergency. It is not too often that we have 2 storms in the tropics at the same time, both projected to be hurricanes. That letter H there represents the prediction of this being a hurricane as it gets into the Gulf. As we've been talking about, the warm waters of the Caribbean almost bleed into the Gulf, almost like a stream of water, and then the Gulf is like a big warm bathtub. The second any sort of storm or cyclone can make it through this land gap right here between Cancun, Mexico, and Cuba, it is projected to get stronger. We had Hurricane Nate that went through this process a while back, and also, if you guys remember, Hurricane Harvey. Hurricane Harvey was almost a no storm coming into the Gulf, and then once it hit that warm water, it blew up and became one of the worst hurricanes in history. So I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but the fact that we have 2 tropical storms, pretty much definitely Tropical Storm Laura. The next will be Marco. If this does reach tropical storm intensity, we're dealing with a double landfall. We have actually never seen that before. The closest we've ever had 2 hurricanes hit is actually highlighted right in this tweet here. The shortest time between 2 separate hurricane landfalls to hit the United States, not including overseas territories, is 23 hours between the Treasure Coast hurricane and the Cuba/Brownsville hurricane on September 4th and 5th of 1933. Check that out. You could see one of them hit the east side of Florida and the other inside the Gulf near South Texas and the border of Mexico. Very interesting stuff there to compare to this information. Not only that, but of all years, in 1933, Hannah was one of the Atlantic hurricane names, just like we had this year. Hint, hint. Really quickly, I'm going to have you listen to the governor make his statement to the state of Florida. It's about 10, 15 seconds long, and then we'll get back to this radar chart.
I'm going to be signing a state of emergency today, which will basically affect the southern Florida counties and then the northwest Florida counties. So people just need to be watching. I always urge people to watch the Weather Channel because I know you guys are following this. Follow your local pronouncements, and then obviously the state, we're going to be providing updates on a regular basis.
And that was just a little while ago. So taking a look at each of these invest or tropical storms or even tropical depressions. We have one of each right now, an invest, tropical storm, and a tropical depression. Here is Laura, currently 45 mile per hour sustained winds, 1,007 millibars, moving west at 16 knots. So we are moving strictly west. We got a little bit of a northern movement with this storm. Again, the high Bermuda Atlantic pressure is keeping this storm pancake down. I also want to show you what's going on with 14 and why the different projections are coming up. We have a dip in the jet stream that's affecting 14 as it continues to develop as well. Here is the worst case scenario for Tropical Storm Laura as far as the path goes. Now, if we take a look at this closely, we could see by Saturday, 2 p.m., we are already past Puerto Rico. We could see Puerto Rico already has tropical storm warnings as well. Makes sense. If Florida's doing state of emergency, we're certainly going to see those tropical storm warnings with the islands to the east. Now, take a look at this path. If this thing misses Puerto Rico or just skims it, no land interaction, we're looking at a very small path of water that goes through all this area, through the Bahamas, and then to South Florida. Now, if we look at the projected paths, we are looking more along the lines of a West Coast issue with Florida rather than an East Coast. That may change. It's all based on the Bermuda Atlantic pressure that is extending through the southeast states and pushing this storm down, which is why it wants to go into the Gulf and which is why we see that hurricane symbol pop up right as it enters that super warm water, which is exactly what these storms need to thrive in. So if this thing takes that path north over Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic and kind of skims across the land masses here, we could see a significant amount of strengthening. That is why, look at the model intensity chart for the prediction of Laura. We have models that bring this thing well into a Category 3, possibly Category 4 hurricane. This is major wind speeds with these hurricanes. We're talking over 120 to 130 mile an hour winds. Unbelievable stuff. And it's also information like this that puts the governor of the state of Florida in a position to declare a state of emergency. When you have numbers like this, you cannot mess around. Here are the current spaghetti plots for Tropical Depression 14 and also Tropical Storm Laura. So we'll look at 14 first. We could see, as expected, we went through the Yucatan Peninsula, and now we are looking at a clipping of Cancun, Mexico. It doesn't look like it's going to shoot the gap there, which is a good thing because that would just allow more potential for development. Because it's clipping Cancun, chances are it will weaken a little bit, but that does not mean it's going to go away. Remember, we just talked about Hurricane Harvey, which did not look like a superstorm at the time. Nobody was even giving it thought until it got into the Gulf and really started blowing up. So in the next 48 hours, once it crosses that landmass by Cancun into the Gulf, that is when we need to really show concern for this storm, because then it's just a matter of days before landfall and also a quick, rapid progression in strength. Tropical Storm Laura, as we discussed, looks like it wants to skim the northern end of Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and Cuba, going below the Bahamas and basically clipping South Florida and then going into the Gulf, putting the panhandle at risk with a shift to the west every couple hours. So now we're seeing Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, or reverse that, in the crosshairs of this storm. And the fact that it's crossing over the northern part of these islands and staying over water is what's really concerning to people, and why we looked at that model intensity chart at possibly being a Cat 4. We're not predicting a Cat 4. We're saying the possibility is there, and it's the first time we've seen it this season. Taking a look at the extended radar, I can't help but picture a past image in my head that we've seen back in 2017. As we can see, Tropical Depression 14 here by the Yucatan Peninsula. We have Tropical Storm Laura, and then our third invest coming off the west coast of Africa. Tell me if this doesn't look a little familiar to you guys. Back in the day, 2017, we had Hurricane Katia, Hurricane Irma, and Hurricane Jose all at the same time. This is an infamous picture we actually shared in 2017. Many outlets shared this, but I'm starting to get that feeling, that 2005, 2015 feeling about this hurricane season. And it is with good reason, too, as we are at a record-breaking number of hurricanes or named storms this early into the hurricane season. August 21st, we are just reaching peak hurricane season, and we are through most of our storm letters, which means we will be going to the Greek alphabet if in time that does come. Right now, it's looking like we're going to surpass that by a long shot. But right now, we need to worry about the Gulf and, of course, our friends in Puerto Rico, the Leeward Islands, Dominican Republic, and then Cuba and the Bahamas. And then the continental U.S. is certainly at risk with both of these storms. I will be making more and more frequent updates as we are entering this peak part of the season. There's a lot to talk about, a lot of different situations going on. One thing I want to show you really quick is how the jet stream is affecting Tropical Depression 14 and may actually change its path completely to actually want to shoot that water gap. And it all has to do with the jet stream. If you look at this chart here, and as I move the cursor back and forth, you're going to see a dip right here of basically an invisible force field where you're seeing some of the moisture wrap around, and that is a dip in our jet stream. And as you can see, as we move forward in time into current time, we have this dip down into the Gulf while Tropical Depression 14 is there. So what that leads me to believe is that as this is tracking to the north, that wall of pressure is going to keep that storm wanting to go straight up rather than across where Cancun is. So we may see a little bit of change in the track of Tropical Depression 14, and if that does happen, that means it's just going to be over water longer and want to shoot that gap into the Gulf of Mexico. So we're waiting to get a final prediction as far as whether or not Tropical Depression 14 or Tropical Storm Marco is going to cross over Cancun, Mexico, or shoot that gap there. But you can clearly see as I move back and forth, we have this very, very drawn out type of force field here that is the jet stream, which basically is a force field, and it controls the storms and actually all of our weather in the continental U.S., just like the Bermuda Atlantic pressure bubble does. So Tropical Depression 14, Tropical Storm Laura, and then our another invest, which is now at about 40% chance of cyclone formation over the next few days. My friends, thank you so much for tuning in. I will be back later on this afternoon, if not tomorrow morning, and we're really going to start watching these storms hour by hour, or we might throw in a couple live streams as well. I hope everyone's safe. Please leave concerns, comments down in the bottom, and I will talk to you all very soon. Have a great afternoon. Thank you. Bye-bye.